Hey everybody, howdy, howdy, howdy. This is Jill from Jill's Jolly Holiday, and I'm mixing it up a little bit. Today we're doing a Jolly Holiday travel journal. So this is a series where you get to be my travel buddy. It's meant to be my personal travel journal, a peek into some of the amazing adventures I've had. And my goal is to inspire you to go out and make your own adventure and just try to give you some ideas to get started. Just so you know, I'm not here to promote any suppliers or sell travel. This is strictly just sharing kind of this. The trip that I'm going to talk about today to Yellowstone, I had taken many years ago, like 8 years ago, and long before I was a travel agent. And you'll notice I'm not sharing where I stayed or any particulars. I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, but I've had a lot of people ask me about traveling to the national parks this year, especially with all the COVID stuff going on and restrictions on traveling out of the country and the complexity of traveling by plane right now. So you guys have been asking me about doing national parks. So I just want to share a little of my own experience. Of course, everyone is different, but this was I would say, one of the best trips I've ever taken in my lifetime. It was amazing. So, hey, if you're out there, just drop a little comment. Tell me what maybe one of your favorite trips to take. What was top on your list? Ooh, top on your lips. Okay. That really stands out as not just a vacation, but an adventure, something really special. So this is mainly focused around Yellowstone, but the trip in total was almost 2 weeks. It didn't start out that way. It was supposed to be a much smaller trip, but luckily I booked our flights on Southwest, which you can move your flights and they don't charge you extra. And it ended up growing and growing because it just was so amazing out there. We just had to keep adding on. So I'm just going to let the trip speak for itself, and I'll talk to you on the other side, but enjoy a peek into my travel journal. Howdy, I'm Jill, and this is my daughter Josie, and this is our epic adventure to Yellowstone National Park. So the park is huge, over 3,400 square miles. It sits mostly in the state of Wyoming, but also a little bit in Montana and Idaho. And as you can see, it covers a lot of territory. We chose to start our journey in Salt Lake City. That's a great city to fly into. Very easy to navigate, safe, clean, and lots of things to do. We had a blast. So we rented a little car, Jersey Girls 2 pump gas. We started our journey north towards Yellowstone. Our plan was to take our time and enjoy the ride. The first place that caught our eye was Ogden, Utah. This is an adorable little town that looks like it was straight out of the 1950s. It has a nice downtown with antique stores and eclectic little shops and a train museum. The drive itself was beautiful. We stopped at an elk farm, watched cattle herds and sheep herding, and just pulled off to the side of the road to admire the beauty around us. Our next major stop was Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Oh my gosh, this was such a cute town. We spent 2 days here at a little hotel on the edge of town where we parked the car and basically walked the whole 2 days we were there. Just outside of downtown is the actual ski resort of Jackson Hole. This is also worth exploring. From here, we turned off the highway, saw a buffalo, and said goodbye to our cell phone signal for the next week. We definitely were off the beaten trail. We finally arrived at our home for the next week, a dude ranch in Kelly, Wyoming. I can't think of a better way to see out west. It was amazing. And it certainly wouldn't be one of my trips without enjoying the wildlife. But it was time to mosey on. Next, we headed through Grand Teton National Park, which sits just below the south entrance to Yellowstone. And then we finally arrived. The park is even more amazing than I expected. You really do have to experience it for yourself. Nothing does it justice. From the south entrance, we headed north towards the inner loop. This is where you find many of the iconic Yellowstone features. There is so much to do in the park. You could spend weeks exploring it, and I'm sure you wouldn't see it all. We were only able to cover about half of the park during this trip. I am definitely looking forward to going back and seeing the rest. Are you ready for your next adventure? Hey guys, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was only a few of the probably more than 1,400 pictures we took on that trip, and a lot were done by my daughter, who is a professional photographer. So that's why they were so good, and the ones that weren't were for me. Yellowstone is actually open year-round, but the whole park is not accessible year-round. So the fun parts of the park that people want to go visit are usually open just from June to September. That trip we took, it was like September 12th, I think we landed in Utah, and it went to the end of September, which is right when the parks close. So it was a nice time to go. The trees were changing. It was beautiful. They were just gold. It was so pretty. The weather was cooler, and it just was perfect because there was hardly any crowds anywhere. And unlike my normal self, which usually likes to plan things out to the last letter when you go on a trip, this was basically thrown together at the last minute. The only actual reservations I made for this trip before we left New Jersey were for the Dude Ranch. That week we spent at the Dude Ranch. Everything else we did on the fly. There was no plans. When we landed at the airport, we picked up the car and just started driving. We didn't even have a map. That's how we had decided, Michelle and I decided, Josie, decided that we were just going to wing it and enjoy the ride. And boy, did we ever. It was one of the best trips I've ever taken. So June to September, that's when all of the visitor centers, the trails are open. Believe it or not, they can get snow in May, and it starts again in September. So they start closing roads in the upper elevations. There's parts of the parks that become inaccessible after September and before May. The whole park is divided into villages. Each village it's amazing to me. You know, the park feels as big as the whole state of New Jersey. I know it's not. It's about half the size, but you move from section to section, and each one is so different. Just a little bit in the video you did see, we saw all those hot springs and the geysers, and you go in other sections and it's very foresty, and some places look like you stepped onto the moon. It's just amazing. It's so cool. And then you have the section that's the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. It's just awe-inspiring. And then you drive a little further. We pulled into one of the visitor centers and we're driving. I forget what that was, a Toyota something. It was about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And a bison just walks through the parking lot and is standing next to our car, which he was bigger than the car. So it just is everywhere you go is like, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. So each of the villages has lodging. There's not just camping, there's actual hotels. They're all different, very different. Each section has its own flavor. We were lucky enough, because it was the off season, that we were able to get a room for the night inside the park, but we weren't able to get successive nights inside the park. So we ended up coming up through the south entrance, doing a lot, and then going out the west entrance and staying in West Yellowstone, which is an actual town. It's right outside the park entrance, and it's it's so stinking cute. We stayed in little log cabins that were hotel rooms, and the downtown had a bakery with cinnamon buns the size of your face, and it's just very quaint. It's beautiful. Everyone was friendly. It was a lot of fun. But definitely, if you're going during the peak season, you want reservations. The main lodge there, you'll notice the brown lodge with all the woodwork, I'm not even sure what kind of, the camp style, I think it's called. That's what the Wilderness Lodge in Disney World is modeled after, one of the many lodges. That's amazing. Those rooms there and in the Snow Lodge, which are also right next to Old Faithful, book up a year in advance. So those you definitely want to get reservation for well in advance. So not here to be the whole travel book. You can certainly look all that up online, but just to kind of give you an idea of the flavor, there's so much to do outside the parks. As you can see, we stayed in the Dude Ranch. There are many dude ranches in the area. And if you are looking for something off the beaten trail, literally, that's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. Each of the little cabins on the Dude Ranch that we stayed in comes with a gator, which is one of those four-wheel vehicles, and a map, because there's no GPS there and there's no cell phones. And there's also no electrical lines. They all run on generators. But here's this gorgeous ranch. You drive an hour off the road, and it's this amazing ranch in the middle of a state park. And you can we would get, Josie and I hopped in our little gator and just followed the camp trails up into the mountains. We drove up to, I think it was like 9,000 feet. We saw a moose. We saw mule deer, eagles, just so much wildlife. And it just was so amazing. And it also was accompanied with the main draw for the two of us was all the horses. They have an entire herd of horses for the summer, as you can see in some of the pictures. And one of the options was, because we're experienced riders, we took lengthy trail rides. I'm talking, I think, are 4 or 5 hours. You pack your lunch, you pack everything, hence the hat. This is not a decoration. It's a necessity out there. And if you ever do it, you'll know why. Up to the top of the mountains on paths where I couldn't even look down because we were so high, and you just kind of basically give the horse the reins and sit back, because you are walking these mountain goat paths up this. I couldn't even look down. I'm not big on heights. And the path was about this big and the horse was this wide, and you just let them they know how to do what they got to do and get you safely up to the top of the mountain. That was a lot of fun. But like I said, there's a ton of dude ranches, some for families. They cater to all different needs and all different levels. So that was that. Let's see. There's great towns outside, like Yellowstone itself. You could spend several weeks inside of Yellowstone and not see it all. We did not even do, I don't think, half of the park in the week that we were there. So keep that in mind. There's all kinds of fun things to do. There is a running of the sheep in a little town outside of the park. There's Mustang adventures where you can see the wild Mustangs. They take trucks out there and you just sit and observe. All kinds, just endless cultural experiences, art. The food is totally different. You can try all kinds of elk and different various meat. But it was great. I say it was one of, I'm not, it may be the top trip I've taken in my lifetime. And it was, had all the factors in it. It was beautiful. It was amazing, awe-inspiring scenery. Can't talk today. I got to spend 2 weeks with my adult daughter. How priceless is that? I mean, that's just not something you get to do hardly anymore. And I get to experience stuff I would never do here, riding into the mountains on a horse, going all day in a gator out to places really remote and seeing wildlife. It was just super cool. So this is my way of saying, don't wait. Plan something amazing. Life is short. Just plan it and go. And every trip does not have to be this, I planned it for a year and I know every little thing I'm going to do. Sometimes the fun of it is the adventure and not knowing what you're going to do. So I'd be happy if you guys want to know more about the places I went. I'd be happy to share with you. I'm not advertising for any of these places. So, I'll do it privately, but yeah, I'm here. Ask away. And thanks for showing up and watching, and there'll be more to come, and take care and have an adventure.